No matter what TCG you make, there will always be some sort of resource you have to use in order to play cards. You may be thinking, well, some games don't require resources, Yu-Gi-Oh might be one of them. That's not true. Yu-Gi-Oh's resources are the creatures themselves. You can play one creature per turn, and in order to play higher power creatures, you're gonna have to sacrifice a smaller power creature in order to play the larger one. This makes your creatures themselves the resource. Magic has land, Pokemon has mana, Demi uses creatures as well, Pixicree uses 3 different ones, your hand, creature mana, and creature health. You can also use time, your deck, and a ton of other things. I'm Zyphine, by the way, the owner of TCG News, and this video will be breaking down various ways to play your cards in your game. Someone on my TCG Guilded server asked what they should do for their game when it comes to resources. This is hard as depending on what your game is, how the game plays, or what the plans on for your game will be, will heavily depend on what type of resources you will use in your game. Though I cannot tell you what you should add yourself, I can tell you some methods that you could use. I'm going to be giving you examples from the most common to the ones that I either made up or I've seen used in the past for other games. The biggest two are mana and lands, which are both the same thing in meaning. Out of the big 3 TCGs, 2 of them use this method: Magic the Gathering and Pokemon. Duel Masters was also a decently large game back in the day, and that also uses a mana system as well. Your mana is a physical card in your deck. You must draw it, play it, and have X of the specific type in order to play specific creatures. When doing so, you turn them sideways to show that you've used them, and then you can play as many creatures in that turn as the mana allows. For example, if you have 4 fire mana on the field and 4 monsters that require 1 fire mana in order to play them, you can technically play all of them in that turn. However, if you have 1 monster that requires 3 fire mana and 1 monster that requires only 1 fire mana, you can only play those 2 turns, and once you expend all the mana, you can't play any more monsters for that turn. This allows for multiple creatures to be played a turn. However, it forces players to rely on structuring their decks around having enough mana that they can play comfortably throughout the game. A lot of people get upset when they are unlucky and cannot play any mana, especially in the beginning of the game, as it puts them at a severe disadvantage when they're playing against an opponent, and sometimes you can't get out of that rut once you're in it. So that's one of the big things that has an issue with the mana and lands. Creatures and sacrifices also are really big. Yu-Gi-Oh is the largest game that uses this. Demi also uses it, which is my game. Creature sacrifices forces you to use your own creatures to play larger ones. Games like this tend to have a set amount of creatures you can play per turn, most being a single creature. Using Demi as an example, if you have 2 monsters on the field, you can remove them from the field and put them in the discard pile to play a demigod. If you have 3 monsters, you can do the same thing, but to play a god card. And you're only allowed 1 creature to be played per turn, and this counts as monsters, demigods, and gods. So it's really heavily based around trying to either play a large creature or ensuring that your opponent cannot play large creatures. This allows for a slower, more strategic gameplay as you cannot play multiple cards per turn. This can create a more stale combat system if you don't do things right, as well as it can lead to a very one-sided battle. If your opponent has a creature that you simply cannot beat, it will destroy all your cards over and over, leaving you with no options but to slowly lose. This means that the gameplay requires a lot of balancing, from field wipes to ways to play multiple cards, as well as ways to remove creatures from play. So it's really a huge balancing game, but it's still a very, very good system to have if you want to use this. Your hand is up next. Your hand can actually be a form of resources, believe it or not. Though it isn't a TCG that I've played, it's a board game called Mission to Planet Hex, which happens to utilize your hand as a way of resources. This could easily be added into a TCG, and I've actually added it as one of the 3 resources in Pixicree, which is a game I'm developing. When you play a card, it will require you to remove X amount of cards in your hand in order to play it. This can be really cool and a unique form of resource, as you can actually add specific cards around being removed as a result of playing a card. An example being this card on the screen right now. When you play a card, it will require you to remove, let's say, 3 cards from your hand. This will force you to get rid of potentially valuable cards while also increasing the need to add cards that are either useless / throwaway cards to your deck. Or you can add cards that have special effects, such as what you see right now, which are specifically geared towards removing a card as a result of another card's resource. So if you discard this card as a result of playing another card, it activates its effect and actually makes it a sacrificial card. It does nothing else but give you a bonus to using it as fodder. The issue with this though is it requires you to be able to draw a lot of cards, be it turns or by card effects, etc. If not, then you will run out of cards in your hand and literally be left at a stalemate. Creatures, health, and mana is up next. Another unique way, and one of the 2 other options I have in Pixicree for resources, would be your creature's health and mana. A lot of games have creature health, which goes down whenever you attack attacked by another creature. However, you could easily turn its health into ways to play other creatures and cards. This means that you're required to make one of your creatures either more fragile or unable to use strong attacks in order to play another card. This adds a lot of strategy to the game and forces you to play creatures that will correspond with being used and abused as a result of being used as a resource. The issue with this is that it forces you to have creatures on the battlefield already in order to use cards. So you're going to have to be able to work that into your game, as well as find out ways to counteract not having any creatures on the field. For example, Pixelcree, you're forced to have 6 creatures, and all 6 creatures are actually the win con as well. Once they are all destroyed, you lose the game as per the win condition. There's a ton of other ways you can go about adding resources into your game, from having a separate resource deck in which you can only use as a resource. Once that runs out, you'd essentially have to go ahead and find a way to add those cards back, such as destroying a card or sacrificing a card on the field or your hand in order to gain cards back into the resource deck. Another cool little way is using time as a resource. Something as easy as only being able to play one card and one creature per turn counts as using time as a resource. In theory, if you have a life point type system for a win con, you could actually use that as a resource. It would count as a high risk, high reward style of resource and could actually create really fast, high tense games in the process. These are just a few examples. Feel free to use any of them or come up with your own unique ways and comment that below. I hope this video has helped you all. If so, please make sure to join gilded.gg/TCG, as well like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon, sacrifice your firstborn, and swear your allegiance to Rome so this channel can be more relevant on YouTube and help find others to help out.